And we're live.
Hi, welcome to the Libertarian Party of Texas Candidate Highlight. I'm Amanda Gibbs. I am the comms director. My co host is Nathan Polsky. He's part of the Political Action Department. And today we are talking with Mark Ash.
Nice to have you both.
All right, thanks for joining us, Mark. So let's just kind of dig right into this. So, Mark, you are a candidate in Texas. Who are you? Because I don't know if we've actually spoken in person. And what are you running for?
Well, I am a criminal defense lawyer. I've been practicing criminal defense law and other law. I've practiced civil law as well for the last 30 plus years in Texas. I started out very young, and I'm running for judge for Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. And that is the court of appeals where the highest court of appeals for criminal cases in Texas.
Okay. All right. And so you've been active in the party for a while. I know you've run before for other positions.
Yes,
Um,
I've run for this position before too, for Texas Court of Criminal Appeals.
All right. So every libertarian that I've met has a different story why they became a libertarian. Some of them came from the Democratic Party. Some of them came from the Republican Party. Some of them were just apolitical like me before they got introduced. So what was your story like? What got you involved in the Libertarian Party, and then what made you decide to run for office?
Well, I've been involved in the Libertarian Party for almost a little bit more than 10 years, maybe almost 12 years, I'd say. And the reason I got involved was that I looked at the other two parties and I was just very frustrated with the other two parties, that they're always baiting each other and it's always blaming each other. And also that the other two parties never are neutral. They're always it's either one party's fault or the other party's fault. And I wasn't active in politics in either of those political parties.
Mm-hmm.
I did vote, and I voted regularly, but I wasn't a delegate or any. I didn't run for any position. I wasn't elected to any position in those other two parties. And I decided that I just wanted to be active in politics, but I wanted to be part of a party that I think is uh, in line with my own political philosophy and beliefs.
Awesome. Well,
And as you can tell from my website, I'm a strong believer in limited government. I'm a strong believer in civil liberties, and continue to have that belief.
so it's the Criminal Court of Appeals. So what specifically does that do, and how does a libertarian or the libertarian philosophy apply to that court?
Well, the Court of Criminal Appeals reviews criminal convictions. So if somebody's convicted on the trial level, it can be appealed to two higher courts, one to the Court of Appeals, depending on the district. There are 14 districts in Texas, and then to another level of appeal, which is the Court of Criminal Appeals. And the judges of the Court of Criminal Appeals review the record to determine whether there's error in the trial process, whether the trial was fair, and whether there's sufficient evidence in the record of the person's guilt. So that's the basic
Mm-hmm.
duty of the Court of Criminal Appeals. But also, the Court of Criminal Appeals it has to protect the Constitution, both the Texas Constitution and the U.S. Constitution, and they decide whether uh, the any constitutional rights have been violated uh, in in the process of the
Mm-hmm.
trial process.
Okay, so I have this is going to show my ignorance a little bit when it comes to this. Is there a way like this position could use nullification?
Well, this nullification comes from a jury. A jury can nullify any, and anybody who has a jury trial, the jury decides a person's not guilty. The jury doesn't have to explain in
Mm-hmm.
any way or any fashion why the jury decided to find somebody not guilty. But if somebody's found guilty, then there has to be judges to make sure that the process was fair. There's evidence that's showing of the guilt, and of course, that the constitutional rights of that person haven't been violated. So you have that. Now, nullification. Some prosecutors try to use nullification, come back with other charges. Then you worry about double jeopardy, whether the prosecution had a right to try that person a second time for what in essence is the same type of offense. Again, the Court of Appeals would look at that
Hmm.
process
Okay.
as well. But jury nullification just come from the jury, and that decision of the jury to find somebody not guilty needs to be respected.
Hmm.
Okay.
Has there been an issue in Texas with judges trying to overturn jury nullification, or
There has not, from what I can tell.
mhm,
Uh, the the jury nullification issue has been that many people who serve on juries do not know that they do not have to explain to anybody or justify to anybody their verdict.
mhm,
Okay, there's a jury listens to the evidence, and even if they agree that the person factually is guilty, but they disagree with the law, they can find somebody not guilty.
mhm,
It is not that the jury has to, in their find somebody uh, guilty because the law tells them to do so. That is the prerogative of a jury to decide that, yes, the person may be factually guilty, but I disagree with the law and I will find that the person is not guilty because I do not want this person convicted and I do not want prosecutors to bring these kind of cases to the criminal courts. An example of that may be marijuana, and some jurors might find that uh, prosecuting low levels of marijuana are inappropriate, and
mhm,
many jurors may find uh, the person not guilty, even though they did in fact possess marijuana in small quantities, and that is their prerogative, and that would send a message to the local prosecutors that in our community we don't think these cases should be prosecuted.
Didn't they
prosecutors.
do that during Prohibition?
They did, I think, a lot of that during Prohibition, but jury nullification goes further back than that. It goes to the days when people own people, slavery, and the jurors would decide that this person cannot be owned by another person, even though legally it was
Mhm,
allowed, but we would not agree with that law as jurors and let this presumed slave free and become a free person. And that those jury nullifications took place many times in northern states where a southerner would ask that this person be returned to them, and the jurors would not allow it through jury
No.
nullification. Yeah, that's where it comes from.
I,
And those were good jurors, in my opinion, and they did the right thing.
I'm sure prosecutors really don't like jury nullification.
No, prosecutors do not like jury nullification. No. And sometimes they get around it by charging the person with other crimes. I say sometimes, but that is I've never seen it. Um, although I've seen it where I had a case involving that the juror did find my client not guilty, one of my clients not guilty, and then they charged my client with another case with a different date. Okay. And unfortunately, my client became frustrated because even though he was found not guilty by jury, chose to hire somebody else, and then he was pressured into a plea, which is unfortunate because I do really believe that this would have been a good case for double jeopardy.
Hmm.
And pleas are just ways to make the the state, the city money versus
Well, that too.
actual justice.
Hmm.
It goes. Part of it is that, but part of it is just the prison industrial complex, mass surveillance, mass incarceration, mass surveillance. All of this stuff is paid for with taxes, and that is of course a waste of tax. Much of it is a waste of taxpayer money. I don't want to say all of it, but much of it is,
Hmm.
and of course with the threat of incarceration, there is a complex that is created, not just the prosecutors. The police and law enforcement have to bring these cases to the prosecutor,
Mhm.
who then prosecute.
Right. So are you running against one other candidate? Or are you running
I'm running against two.
two?
There's two. There's a for both each party,
Hmm.
and the story gets a little bit more interesting. The One of them was primaried out, so my Democratic opponent did not have a primary opponent. My Republican opponent actually won the primary against a sitting judge. In fact, all three of the Court of Criminal Appeals uh, judges were primaried out by opponents. So these were incumbents,
Hmm.
Republican incumbents, that were primaried out. And I can go into an explanation as to why that happened, which is even more interesting.
Ooh.
Uh,
Do?
yes, and it has to do with the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who asked his supporters to primary out the uh, three judges because they decided to respect and uphold the Constitution. And the Constitution is very specific that the Texas Attorney General does not have the power to file a criminal case in a local court.
Hmm.
Okay, they have the power to assist the Attorney General. I mean, the Attorney General has the power to assist the district attorneys and the local prosecutors in investigating crimes and assisting them with that process. But the Attorney General, as an office, cannot file directly in a local court. And the Court of Criminal Appeals decided in 8-1 decision that power is not a power given to the Attorney General under the Constitution. It never has been a power since the Constitution of 1876 had been ratified. So these judges who ruled against Ken Paxton, uh, Ken Paxton selected primary opponents, and encouraged voters to vote for them because they wouldn't give him that power, that extra power. Again, I think that's another politicization of the judicial process. And yes, I'm not a big fan of judges being elected so much as uh, maybe Ken Paxton would, because yes, he handpicked those three.
That sounds a little corrupt.
Yes, it's part of the Republican crony
So
part.
all three of the Republicans that are running for criminal court of appeals
That's correct.
were
We're handpicked.
were handpicked by Ken Paxton
Yes, and
to
then they ran.
vote in his favor.
Yes, and they all stated that they would have not ruled uh, against Ken Paxton. All three of them stated that, and they can apparently the Republican primary voter was convinced that that was very important, that Ken Paxton had that power. Not only that, the Ken Paxton convinced Donald Trump's no, uh, son, Donald Trump Jr.,
Hmm.
okay, to um, uh, endorse them. So they were endorsed by the Trump campaign. So the Republican voters may not have known why Trump said that they needed to be voted for, but since he said that, a good Republican voter is going to vote along with what Trump says to do. And and yes, uh, those
That
three.
just like breaks my
Oh,
libertarian heart. Like, fall in line, do this because I said so.
Yes,
Like, be an
yes,
individual. Come on.
yes. I cannot believe. I mean, if you get endorsed by Trump, you get elected. Okay, that's how the Republican Party is working now.
hmm.
Okay, it's not a Republican Party so much anymore as a Trump Party, and it's not something that I think should be happening. So yes, so we have three Republican primary candidates. They're not who booted out 3 incumbent judges because Ken Paxton asked Trump to tell them to do so because he wanted more power to file cases directly in court and rule against that decision that said he didn't have that power to begin with because it wasn't under the Constitution. So that's the story on the Republican side.
The more I hear about this,
It's
the
somewhat
left,
complex, but it's all part of the same puzzle and part of the piece. You know?
the
And
more
so
I,
I'm offering those frustrated Republicans an alternative. Yes.
yeah. So
It is. Hang on. That is literally like one of the Republican like talking points is smaller government,
Yes.
but literally
that is the swamp.
it is.
Even worse than it's even
They're-
worse than it's even worse than reducing government, which is what Republican talking points. It's Republican talking points is you don't legislate from the bench. And I agree, you don't legislate from the bench. You respect the Constitution. Okay. You don't try to create something in the Constitution that wasn't there. Okay. The Constitution said the Attorney General has all necessary powers to carry out his duty. Okay, the duty of the office. But that doesn't include the additional power to file cases directly when that power has always been with the local district attorney's office since 1876. You don't just change those things. But they are what these primary elected candidates from the Republican primary are saying that they in fact will legislate from the bench. But they say no, we will have to legislate from the bench if the legislature doesn't change the law or the Constitution is not changed. The Texas Constitution is not changed, and that's what they said in their campaign material. And
So-
I think I have some of it here, but their language is very a double speak because on the one side they're saying they don't want to legislate from the bench, but on the other side, yeah, they want to.
So it sounds like we need to have some sort of active campaign from the Libertarian Party calling out Ken Paxton and his handpicked "do as I say" Court of Appeals.
Yes, and we have 2 of us, our libertarians, are running in the Court of Criminal Appeals, and yes. What's interesting is that on the Democratic side, she's keeping quiet, and I think part of the reason that Democrats keep quiet is because they themselves are not against legislating from the bench. They will legislate from the bench. And I've always had a problem, although I'm definitely pro-choice, I always had a problem with Roe versus Wade. It's a poorly decided decision. There's nothing in the Constitution that gives a woman a right to have an abortion. Although I do believe a woman should have a right to have abortion, but it needs to come from the legislature. And
Right.
judges are not there to legislate, you see. And so Democrats tend to want to legislate from the bench. And I am not in agreement with that.
Yeah.
Judges are not there to legislate from the bench.
They just want to completely bypass the entire legislative process.
Yes, yeah, they want to legislate certain things from the bench. And no, I don't agree with that. Okay. And now Republicans are starting to sound like Democrats, and they want to legislate from the bench, although they say they don't.
They just
I mean, Ken Paxton just did that thing against the city of Austin like this week with their decriminalization of marijuana, and a judge actually was like, no, you don't have the right to do this, and like kicked it out with prejudice. That means it can't be tried again, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And yeah, the local district attorneys have to decide whether they want to prosecute cases or not. Okay, that is not up to Ken Paxton. The Attorney General's office is there to assist and provide assistance in investigating cases, and provide assistance in cooperating in the procedure between counties. So, for instance, if somebody is charged with a crime in several counties, how that process is going to be carried out. And the Attorney General's office is to provide those records and data and that kind of thing. It's a very administrative position more than anything else, and should be as such, and not be so politicized. But yes, too much of the process is becoming politicized, and that needs to stop.
Ooh. And here I was having some sort of faith in our current judicial system.
Well, uh, I think our judicial process is, and the rights under the judiciary are being eroded. What I'm trying to say is that the, the, the judges, if they become political animals, they become less and less beholden to the law and more beholden to who put them there in that
Hmm.
position.
Yeah, and
That's not right.
I don't think any judge should care what political party they belong to, because you have the law, you have the Constitution that you're supposed to uphold.
Uphold. That's correct. Yeah,
And
and
that just
I
makes
would
sense to me.
obviously, if I were to be elected as judge of court of criminal appeals, I'd definitely uphold the Constitution and decide cases on the law and the facts that are before me.
Hmm.
Now that I want to bring something else up, I do have a little bit of judicial experience. I say a little bit, quite a bit actually, as a property tax arbitrator, and I'm just going to bring that plug in, if I may.
Oh, go for it.
At this, uh, the comptroller's office can appoint an arbitrator for somebody who is not satisfied with the value that the appraisal review board gave for
Hmm.
tax purposes. And those arbitrators are chosen by the Texas comptroller from a list. And so I have arbitrated property tax cases, I would say about 100 to
Hmm.
150, something like that, over the last 7 years.
Hmm.
And so that it has given me some judicial like experience, although we're technically not judges, we're arbitrators, but they do have to decide property value based on the law and the facts that are presented to them. And so in that sense, I have some judicial experience, unlike uh, many other libertarians who, unfortunately, in order to get judicial experience, you have to join up in one of those two political parties, which I've not chosen to do.
We
Right.
appreciate
I
that.
chose not to do, I should say.
Right, and that was going to be one of my questions as well, as what type of experience you have. But it sounds like you've, while not being a court judge per se, you have had that arbitration experience before.
That is one kind of judicial-like experience, in addition to, of course, having practiced criminal law,
Hmm.
defending people from crimes. And most of the clients that I've had have been court-appointed cases, and so I've probably represented thousands of people. I don't know, the numbers get every year higher and higher,
Hmm.
but I would say I average about 250 cases a year, so it's probably running into thousands at this point
That's a lot of
over the
cases.
30-year period.
Well,
Uh,
he is in Harris County, so he's in Houston proper. Just
well, yeah, no, my it's Harris County. I do
oh,
court appointments is for Harris County, but I
okay.
have done court appointments for Galveston County. I've done some in Montgomery County, and I have even dabbled in other counties that I don't do appointments, like in
Hmm.
Corpus Christi. I had a case in San Antonio, Dallas once. But for court appointments, it's pretty much stuck to Harris County, Montgomery County in the past, and Galveston in the past.
Gotcha. So, and I know in a lot of other elected positions, for House or for Senate, those individuals are kind of working with other people within their own party and outside their party. For the Criminal Court of Appeals, um, is there that opportunity for you to really work with other judges, or are you kind of more like a one-man show at that point?
Well, the judge Court of Appeals is a 9-judge court,
Mm-hmm.
so you have 9 judges that have to make a decision how they're going to rule, and but each of the judges can write their own opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, either agreeing or disagreeing. You're saying we want to reverse the conviction or we want to affirm the conviction. And so, and you can do it you don't have to do it all for the same reasons. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you could have, I say, well, I think that this uh, conviction should be overturned for these reasons, while you may have overturned it for other reasons. So yeah, the Court of Appeals, you obviously have to work with other judges. But it's not that you have to agree in
Mm-hmm.
unison. You can write separate opinions. if you
Just
want.
like the Supreme Court does, right?
Just yes, there's what happens. The parties file briefs, and briefs are just documents that go over the record and try to explain to the judge what relief judges of the court what relief they're seeking.
Mhm.
So they can either seek to overturn the decision or have a new trial. Okay, so those are the two most important
Mhm.
uh, requests that people make for on behalf of the defendant. And so the judges then have to make a decision how they're going to rule, and then they write an opinion as to why they rule in favor of one party over the other. And that written opinion can be agreed to by the judges, or you can write a separate opinion and say, well, I think I agree with the majority, but for different reasons.
Okay.
Or you can write a dissenting opinion, which means I don't agree with this decision. And I think this is the reason why I don't agree with the majority.
And so that would allow for a lot of transparency then between the judges.
Well, yes, and that's the Court of Appeals is for the most part very transparent
Mhm.
as to how they rule. Okay, what they may not necessarily be transparent is which cases they select to decide, because Court of Criminal Appeals does not have to take all cases. In other words, but there is one exception, and the
Mhm.
exception is the death penalty cases. The death penalty cases, the Court of Appeals must hear the death penalty cases, but they can decide whether to take these cases or not, and that's discretionary. Uh, the Court of Appeals is not a court that must hear the appeal.
Mhm.
The lower courts, the 14 lower courts of appeals, yes, they are mandatory. They must hear the appeal. You have a right as a criminal defendant to appeal your case, and you have a right to appeal to one of 14 courts of appeals. But to have it appealed again, it's a petition, a discretionary. So when you file a petition for discretionary review, you're asking the court to review it,
Mhm.
and then they can decide, well, we're not going to review it or we are going to review it.
Is that like a majority vote of the judges?
Yes, 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 yes. They have decided that it's going to review these cases, and actually, they pretty much have a process by which they decide which cases they will review, which ones they won't, and that's not quite transparent. And,
Mm.
and I don't think it
So
necessarily
if it
has.
favors one party's
Well,
agenda, basically.
no, it's that all these cases are defendants, and criminal cases are defendants. So the
Mhm.
defendants are the ones who are appealing. Sometimes the state will appeal decisions. There can be some decisions that the state can appeal, but for the most part, I would say 80-90% is the defendants are appealing it, and they have to select which cases they want to hear based on uh, there's a difference of opinion between the different courts of appeals, or this is something that's important for the jurisprudence of the state, for the law of the state.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Gotcha.
that's not quite open, but you know,
Is that something that you would want to make more open?
I probably would think that it should be made a little bit more open. We should be a little bit more transparent about that.
Mhm.
But it's hard to figure out, okay, oh, we're going to decide cases based on this criteria, then that doesn't give the judiciary very much independence and discretion, which is what the whole idea behind discretionary review is.
Mhm.
But the process should probably be a little bit more open than it is.
Okay.
Discretionary review means it's discretionary. We don't review all cases. We
Right.
decide in discretionary review. Because in the cases, there are massive number of cases, they could possibly hear every single one of them.
Do you know how many they hear on an annual basis?
I don't know the numbers. I'm going to be I was not prepared for this interview to ask about the numbers, but the numbers are 14 courts of appeals. The state of Texas is a pretty big state.
Mhm.
254 counties are in the state of Texas. You know, it's just the third most populated state in the country. You're talking a lot about a lot of
It's
cases.
probably a whole lot.
Thousands.
Yes, not one or two a year.
Huh?
Not one or two a year.
Oh no, nothing even close to that. No, it's it is pretty incredible that they have to process so much.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in the olden days, of course, they processed paperwork. Now it's pretty much done electronically.
Right. Go
It
ahead.
is massive, that's for sure.
I don't know. Just based off of this conversation, I feel like I okay, my very elementary level thing was that the judicial branch of things were supposed to be nonpartisan and just uphold law,
Yeah.
and I don't understand why this is partisan.
It has Texas is one of 6 or 7 states that have made it partisan. Um, I and all it's not just the Court of Criminal Appeals and the Texas Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals, the 14 courts of appeals, all the courts, okay, the district courts, the county courts, the specialty courts within the district counts, like in Harris County, we have criminal courts, family courts, civil
Mm-hmm.
courts, and probate. It just goes on and on. You get the ballot in Harris County, and the vast majority of the people who are being elected on the ballot are judges. It's just incredible. And unless you have studied the law or even have a lawyer, you have to study the law to become a lawyer. Um, it can be overwhelming for the average voter.
Mm-hmm.
And so they tend to vote. The judges tend to get elected based on partisan politics.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, I'm going to vote for this party, the RRD, because that's the party that I trust more in selecting judicial candidates for me. And it's so if you win the primary, you win the election.
Mm-hmm.
If you win the primary of the correct party in the place where you're living.
Mm-hmm.
So, your blue county versus a red county. So it's important which primary you're going to win. And I think that that's, again, not helpful because, we can have judges that are not necessarily competent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that can be a problem.
They get propped up by a party because they know
Yes,
they're going to vote their way.
and I'm going to say something that I probably shouldn't say, but in Harris County, the Democratic Party voter wants to has tended to vote for female judges. In fact, if you are female, you're going to win the primary over a male. I've seen that in the last 3 elections in the Democratic primary, not in the general election, mind you. The general election, that's a different story. But in the primary, the Democratic primary, it is identity politics comes into play, and that's another thing. I don't know who this candidate is. I just know it's a female name. I'm going to vote for her because we need female judges.
I do not understand people not researching. I literally, so in 22, I feel like our Harris County ballot, it was like, it felt like it was like 47 pages long. It was so long.
Yes,
And
it's
like
massive.
the last half of it was judges. But I did go through and at least attempt to like know like who these people were, like look into like their special interests and stuff like that, and how they've ruled and how long it took them to see like try a case or whatever it, however that is done. Like I at least attempted and actually voted for a Democrat the first time in my entire life in 22 in a judge position. And I was like, oh, because I was GOP before I was a libertarian. And so it was very hard to like swirl that little thing around to the D. And I was like,
Well, the judges can be very interesting. That in the criminal judges, they can be more respectful of civil liberties if they're a Democrat, while if they're in civil judges, they may be more respectful of property rights if they're a Republican. So there is a tendency for the judges to be more leaning toward one party or another, depending on the political party they're from.
Mhm.
So
why can't they just be libertarians and protect properties and civil liberties?
that's true. They're just not quite there. They're not quite there when it comes to that. again, I'm not real big on judges being elected. I think there needs to be more of a process of people. I mean, obviously, I do believe they should be lawyers who should be judges, but who have a judicial education before they come in, that they work as in the judicial process somewhat. The only qualification to run for judge is that you have a law license for 4 years on the district level, and on the Court of Appeals level, you have a law license for 10 years. That's it.
So like
And
not even practice?
they changed the rule recently. I take that back. They changed the rule and said you had to have practice law, and they're not even clear as to what constitutes practice. Okay, you practiced in the state of Texas law for practice law in the state of Texas for 10 years. It doesn't say what you've done, how many clients you represented, what courts you've gone to, nothing. It's just, it's very open, and I think there has to, for judges, I'm not against. I'm not saying that lawyers need to be only working in special fields, because I'm not a person who believes in a regulatory scheme. Okay, I'm not as libertarian, we do believe in minimal government regulation, but I do believe in more regulation for people who are in government. Okay, so that's a double standard. Yes, people who are not in government and practice law, we should not have requirements. You can't represent this client because you don't have this experience. That's up to the client and the attorney. That's private. Private should be minimal regulation. On when you're talking government, people in government, yeah, that's definitely should be very, very particular as to who is in government, because they have power and authority over others. It's not a voluntary aspect like a client and an attorney versus the involuntary nature of the judge and the prosecutor who has power over somebody involuntarily.
So in Texas, you could have a lawyer or someone who practices law and has one or two clients a year, which would still qualify them to run for a county or court judge or for the state judge.
Any of the numeral judge positions, any numeral judicial positions, that's correct. Yeah, it doesn't.
And you've got a reminder to everybody, you've got 250 per year that you're handling.
A minimum of 200 to 250 a year for the last 30 years. So again, it runs into the mouth. And obviously, there's people who come up to me and say, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "No." You were my lawyer 10 years ago. Well, thank you for remembering me. I'm sorry to remember you.
I felt so bad. I was helping Derek Bros, who was trying to run for mayor of Houston, and he had a little hiccup because of a prior nonviolent felony. And I was like, all I know is Mark Ash. I can give you his phone number. And you did a fantastic job directing him towards somebody who could help him. So I appreciate that.
Yes, he was seeking more help in the civil area. And so I directed him to somebody who was in election law and dealing with elections. Unfortunately, he didn't get to run, and that's another, of course, that's another law that, of course, you can run for president and have a felony, but you can't run for mayor and have a felony.
But it's just because it's in Houston's charter or whatever. I think it's a charter.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you your opinion, because I worked very hard with the platform committee. Have you seen the restoration of rights plank that got passed at our convention?
I may have seen it. If you could remind me what it says.
Oh, I will. Hang on. Let me pull it up.
It was a good one.
Restoration of rights. I don't.
Okay, so it says LP Texas advocates for the complete restoration of rights lost by offenders upon the completion of their sentence. By restoring rights to former offenders, we aim to foster a more just and compassionate society that values rehabilitation, reduces recidivism, and rewards reintegration.
Yes, I certainly believe that if you should not be denied licenses to work in fields because you have a criminal record.
Or run for office.
And that's one thing. That's more important than running for office. That you have the ability to work as a in your chosen line of work, whether it be in plumbing, electricity,
Hmm.
and whether it be is a lawyer or a physician or a pharmacist, and for running for office as well. Uh, I just believe that judges need to have a little bit more experience
Hmm.
because that's a very important position. But as far as running for mayor and city council or legislature, you don't have to be a lawyer to run for those positions. And if your rights have been restored, you certainly should be able to run for those positions. Okay,
But the state doesn't necessarily restore those rights when,
that's
even if it is a nonviolent thing.
true. They don't, and it's only been recently that I think the state of Texas has allowed felons to vote. It used to be, and many states do not allow felons to vote. Uh, but you cannot vote in Texas if you're under parole or probation, felony parole or probation. So you have to be off parole or off probation to vote. Uh, you can vote in jail as long as you don't have a felony conviction. So that is kind of interesting. Be in
Well,
jail and vote, but can't
well,
vote.
here's a potential question. Well, not potential question. It's an actual question. Then a potential interpretation of the law. Then, so you said you cannot have a felony record and run in the state of Texas. That's correct?
In certain positions, yes.
But the presidential one is
Yeah, the
exempt from that.
federal does not apply. The federal, that Congress,
Hmm.
Senate, and of course presidential candidates that
Okay.
don't have can run with a record.
Make that make sense.
And the federal system is separate than the state system.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I'm not a believer that only a select few should be involved in politics. I think politics should be open to all. I'm not a believer that judges should be political animals, but that's a different story. Uh,
Yeah.
when it comes to the legislature, that is, if we live in a democracy, then we should have that open to all. And that's what democracy is about. It's not about limiting only to an exclusive few.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's and that's of course another reason that I really believe that a third party uh, should be. We should have a third party, and that's why I'm running as a third party to help the third party continue to have ballot access and continue to be relevant.
Hmm.
Am I correct that you have played a part in keeping libertarians with ballot access at least twice?
At least twice, yes. In 2018, I ran against a Republican, who, by the way, was one of them that was primaried out. Uh, and I got 26% of the vote. And because there was no Democrat in my race, 1.6 million votes. So I was the opposition candidate. They didn't have even the Democrats didn't even put somebody up in 2018. So
1.6 million. That's
yeah,
such a
yeah,
large number.
yeah. It was pretty incredible. It was pretty incredible. I didn't think I was going to get. I knew I was going to get a lot of votes, but I didn't think it would go up that high.
Well, and something like that, you get what, all of the Democrat votes plus libertarian votes.
Yes, not all the Democratic votes. I was somewhat disappointed. I got about, I would say, about half of the
Hmm.
Democratic votes. Most of the Democrats just, the other half, about half the Democrats didn't vote.
Because
So,
NOTA is an option,
yeah,
Note it
but
as an
or
option.
abstention.
Yeah.
well, the option is that you can choose not to vote in that race.
Hmm.
Yeah.
If you vote for one party, you can just vote for people in that party, and that's it. You walk out the door after you voted for the people in that one party. And there are a lot of people in Texas who are one-party voters.
Yep.
That's sad.
I even saw that at the municipal nonpartisan races where people walk in, the first thing they ask is, what party are you affiliated with? It's like, this is a nonpartisan race. There's no party affiliation. Doesn't matter to them.
Well, in the Houston mayor's race, they know the voter that
Mhm.
if they research it a little bit, just for the mayor's race. I'm not talking about city council, but the mayor, they know who is running on which party. But what happened in this last mayor's race is there were several people who were from the same party.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Several people were from the Democratic Party because Houston is a very Democratic city. And yes, ended up looking like, in my opinion, as Democratic primary, somewhat like a
It
Democratic primary.
did.
Yeah, it did, but not quite, because there was, again, some voters who, okay, all right, list is full of Democrats. I can pick one that may not be the same that most Democrats would pick.
Mhm.
So it
I
does
would have
that
voted
makes
for
it a little
Derrick
different.
Rose. If I lived in Houston and they allowed him on the ballot after they accepted his paperwork, that's who I would have voted for. But
Yeah, well, sadly, we didn't have a Libertarian candidate on the ballot for Houston mayor.
Mhm.
maybe next time.
Maybe next time, yes.
All right. Well, Amanda, do you have anything else you want to bring up with Mark?
Not that I can think of right now. I'm sure like I'm gonna like sit here and go through my head later and be like, oh,
Well,
I
just
wish I would have asked.
remind people that they can look at my Facebook page.
Mhm.
I have a lot of interesting posts on my Facebook page that people should look at. I would hope that people would look at, and I welcome all comments. I also have an email address that I welcome people to
And what is
email,
that?
and it's Mark Ash, lawyer at yahoo.com. I am still a lawyer. I'm still practicing law, and I will continue to practice law. So it's Mark Ash, lawyer at yahoo.com.
Okay.
And so anybody can email me any suggestions, comments, opinions. No, I
Mhm.
don't have any problem. And I do review my emails every day. And of course, on my Facebook, which is Mark Ash, Libertarian.
Yep.
So that's my two ways to contact me. They're the easiest ways to contact me. And I'll do my best to help out in this process. Help out both the Libertarian Party on one side, and of course to help out anybody who may have problems with the judicial system. I can maybe make some suggestions what to do, how to do it, where to
Mhm.
go, and when to go, that kind of thing.
Maybe you need legal help. I can point you in the right
The right
direction.
direction. Yes. I've been doing it for a long time.
Well,
I've been doing it. And I like people who are libertarian minded. They're the clients that I like the most, to
mhm.
be honest with you, because libertarians have a different way of thinking. They're anti-authoritarian, and I like people who are, doesn't just go along to get along. That they understand that, you need to question more once in a while.
Mhm.
So what I just heard is that if I get arrested for some activism, that you can represent me.
I will do my best. I will do my best. I try to stick to Harris County. That
Well, I'm in Harris.
I know, I know. I try to stick. It's harder for me to drive out all, throughout the state. But yes, Harris County is still pretty much where I practice
Well,
law.
it's what, already 2 hours across Harris County from one side to the other side.
Pretty much.
In driving, yes, but the court, of course, is in downtown, and everybody goes to the court,
Okay.
and that's
It takes me like 45 minutes to get downtown
yeah.
from where I am.
But yes, it is with traffic, it could be 2 hours from one end to the other end. But the court
Oh
is
yeah.
pretty much in the center of the county.
All right. Well, Mark, did you have anything else you wanted to bring up before we go? I've got your Facebook is linked down below, so anybody who's watching, they can see it's Mark Ash Libertarian on Facebook, and then you said your email is markashlawyer at
At Yahoo.
yahoo.com.
That's great that people spread the news. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else. Amanda, you're shaking your head. No, you're
I'm
good.
good.
You're good. And Mark, you said you're good too.
I'm good. Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you for letting me talk to both of
Well, thank you for.
Hopefully this isn't the last time that we get to do this.
you. Yeah,
Yes. we're definitely hoping to do a lot more stuff like this with some of the candidates that we've already had, and potentially, different types of setups as well. So thank you again for joining us. For everybody who's watching, this is Mark Ash running for the Texas. It's Court of Criminal Appeals, place 7. Correct. 7. All right. So thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned. We'll have more candidates coming up. We've got a lot more lined up as well. And you go over to the Libertarian Party of Texas on youtube.com to see a list of all of our other candidates that we've already had done so far. So thank you all again, and until next time.